Yeah.
And then what you were just saying there about eating the food, in my Kundalini yoga teacher training, there's one of the elements where it was just about food and our relations. So one of the practices we had to do for the training is prepare a meal that you can eat with your hands. And it was beautiful because what we did is first it's Yogi Bhajan's teaching, so they've kept it authentic. You know, it's like yogas and teachers, it all kind of gets skewered along the way, and they're doing everything. They're not editing anything like Theravada Buddhism, where they just will not change anything whatsoever, which has its pros and cons, like any tradition does. Some need to be updated. Some things need to stay purely the same, and I am a bit of a purist. I like things like Hatha Yoga. I just like original teachings and nothing's been skewered. Again, there's pros and cons. Anyway, this teaching is you say a little prayer before your food, a prayer in the sense of connecting with what you're about to eat. You know, you send gratitude and compassion to this element of food that you're eating. You do a little empowerment, touching your shoulders and your knees, and you know, I like ritual. I enjoy that stuff for whether or not it has benefit for people. For me, it helps me connect and get into what I'm doing. And then you use your hands to like eat the food, and it was like a salad I had, chickpeas and you know, Ayurvedic kind of foods. And it was, you know, just sat there eating, and you chew it 21 times. So everything you chew 21 times to they really focus on the dissolution of the food in the mouth. And Sadhguru, he mentions this too in his talks. And when I did the Sadhguru the kriyas with them over the 3 days, that's all we did for lunch. It was sit and you chew it like this in specific foods, because it's the saliva in your mouth is actually what's breaking down the food. So you chew 21 times, or essentially till there's nothing left to swallow. There's I wish I had the quote, but there's a quote that they're basically talking about if you don't chew it enough, you're actually putting poison into the body in a sense. You want to chew it all in the mouth so it's nothing, which helps the whole digestive process. Digestion starts in the mouth, not in the belly. And I was like, yes, I like that a lot. And to see the actual struggle I'd have is like, I'm chewing, oh, there's taste. God, I just want to swallow that. Or you want to chew 3 times, 4 times. But like meditation or any practice, when we give in to the process itself, when we stop and go, this is what I'm doing, so I'll give it the full effort, it's just, it takes you somewhere else. It really does. We really develop different qualities. And to bring that into life, imagine if it was a normal thing where we would write, it's a mealtime, let's give this some effort and some energy and a focus on that. And on the course, the lady is suggesting, imagine having a yogi dinner party where you sit and everybody brings something to eat. You use your hands to connect because the energy from your hands going into the food, you're bringing that to the mouth, you're chewing it all that time, you're not talking, you're just sat there and you're being with your food. And when lockdown's over, man, I think it's something that would be great for me and you to do. You know, we'll have a little yoga lunchtime once a week or something, just helping start that practice, because it's not something that I'll be committed to for every meal. I know that, being a realist, but it's something like fasting. Once a month, I'm going to do a Sunday, something I've wanted to do. And this has rebooted me. Once a month, every Sunday, I would just do a fast. Maybe if I can increase that to every Sunday, that'd be wonderful. But at least once a month on a Sunday, just do a full fast. And then at least twice a week, do a lunchtime meal with my hands and spend that time with the chewing and increasing it, because it does transform these traits and these abilities. You know, we talk often about how we change ourselves, and we know it's by gradually going into something. But do something. If you're interested and you've got the effort to do it, do something so far out like this. You know, like maybe we could get a few of us together and we could all have a meal once a week where we go out and we just have a yogic meal and we chew and we sit and then we reflect afterwards. Like, it's installing these methods of doing it, isn't it? And having the support system to go for it and creating a community for it, because it's so easy to fall on your own. But suppose it's easier for ourselves. You have your Hindu background and me with my interest in Eastern philosophies and spirituality, to go, right, I will give that a go. And once you've felt it, once you know it, and you've been through the hardships that people who are so unfamiliar with it, once you've got through the growing pains, it's indisputable, at least to see your connections and pulls. Like, the very least is, why do I want to chew it quicker? Why do I struggle in a fast? Why do I really want that food that's actually not good for me? And know there's a massive craving for it. Just before I go into your other point, is there anything you want to add towards that?
Yeah, there's a couple of things that triggered something in my head. So the reason, have you ever wondered why your mother's food always tastes better than food that you get from outside? Why?
Straight up love, brother. Straight up love.
And I don't think people understand that concept. Like you said, when you pray to the food or when you chant mantras, that's where it is. It's purifying the food. And in the olden days, when chefs made the food, when your mother makes the food, she will generally give her love to the food, and that's why it tastes so great. In the Hindu tradition, the mother would chant mantras while she's making the food, or the chef will chant mantras, and then that gives love to the food that you are just about to consume. And the second point is this idea of using cutlery. Now, my friends know, and they'll tell you all about it. I can't use cutlery. I'm so bad. And it's so funny to watch me do it. And I would, for a period of time, I was quite embarrassed by it. And then I just thought, screw it. This is just who I am. I like to use my hands. It's that tactile response that you get from the food. And then when you place it in your mouth, it's something that, again, it's very primitive. It's something that early humans were doing, and the whole of the East, they don't use any cutlery. Maybe the Chinese tradition is using chopsticks, etc. Apart from that, the tradition is not to use anything apart from your hands. Just push record again. And I think we've got into a habit of separating ourselves from the food that we're consuming, separating ourselves from nature, and that's what this object. So if you want to go into the philosophy of it, this steel object or this metal object that we use as cutlery, a knife or a fork, does that. It separates you from the thing that you are just about to ingest. And I think Sadhguru talks about, we have this amazing autonomous ability to transform that food into you. Why does that food not transform into, like, when I consume that food, why doesn't that food turn into Craig? Or why does it not turn into a dog? Or why does it not turn into an animal? It doesn't, because it manifests whatever that's happening in my body. My body knows that that food needs to somehow turn into me. It becomes a part of me. So when you consume a mango, that mango, you digest it, you break it down, and then it gives the nutrition to the body, and then that becomes you. It becomes a part of your body and your anatomy, or your biology. And I think we've lost that tradition. Maybe it's because we overthink everything these days as well. And the final thing I want to touch on before we move on to the indulgence thing is the seating position. The way you sit has a huge effect on how you're going to digest that food, and that comes back to that 21 times you chew the food. I think. From what we were taught as kids growing up, the reason why you break it down 21 times is so then it becomes liquid in your mouth. It becomes almost liquid. So when you swallow it, you're not taking in those large chunks of or pieces of food. So when we do this, it allows our acid regulation in our stomach to stay constant. Obviously it fluctuates through the daytime depending on the position of the sun, depending on when we're consuming food, etc., how much food we're consuming, the types of food. But generally speaking, we should have a pretty balanced level of acid production in our stomach. The problem why it fluctuates so much, the problem why people suffer acidity is because of that. You consume foods, first of all, that are harder for the digestive system to break down. So we call them, complex carbs. Foods that are harder to break down, like, for example, what's a complex carb? Potato, etc. We want to try and go as simple as possible. So anything that goes into the body and comes out is better for you than things that linger inside of your stomach and linger inside of your intestines. So that's why foods are categorized into three categories in Ayurveda. We have sattvic foods, which come directly from the earth, fruits, vegetables, etc. Very light sort of foods. Then we have the tamasic foods, which, oh God, I've just pushed the button on my screen. There we go. So we have the the rajasic food, which are foods with passion. So the sattvic foods are the foods with love and purity. So they come naturally. Oh, I'm having an issue. Sorry, mate. Come on, stand.
The tamasic foods then being more the fiery ones, like the peppers, the cayennes, chilies.
Yeah, basically. So the tamasic foods are the ones you want to try and avoid.
Right.
The ones the passionate ones, rajasic foods are, if you think about passion fruit, it only has a smaller quantity of juice inside of it, but it's extremely tangy and extremely sour.
Funny you say that. I bought a load from Mark Spencer because I love them, and they're just there's something special about them. We're not to distract from the topic here, but again pulled to them, and it's like there's something special about them. There's so little of it in such a big case, but it's like it's like having an elixir in a movie or something. It's like you've got this little bit here, but you drink it, and it's like, this is a special, this is something to be looked after. Maybe not consumed all the time, but there's something special about how magical that substance is.
Yeah, and it's interesting how when you finish it, you think, God, I need more now. But passion fruits are quite interesting because you'll go through, if you consume a large amount of passion fruits a day, within the week, I guarantee it, within the week, you will get sick of it. So my father owns a sort of Indian grocery store, so he gets fruits from across the world. When we used to bring the box of passion fruits at home, my sisters and I would consume it within like a day, and all the passion fruits would be gone. We consume like 10 a day, and then within like 10 days, within like 2 or 3 days, you are absolutely sick of them. Why? Because the food is extremely extreme in taste, if you want to call it. So very passionate in taste, so rajasic. And the final foods that we're talking about, the tamasic ones, meat comes into that category. Onion and garlic come into that category. Anything that has a narcotic effect on the body and the mind goes into the tamasic category, and it affects the way you think, the way you breathe, the way you look at the world. So this is where, foods like, again, meat, fish, eggs, foods that come from a direct animal source, like not milk, because milk is, traditionally speaking, milk does not harm the cow. Milk it comes from the udder, it feeds the calf, but also it's good, it's nutritious for human beings as well. Like, we've been drinking it for thousands of years. So milk is not an issue. It's when we have this commercial milk that hurts the cow. So imagine, this is a really good analogy. Imagine you put your mother in chains and you ask her to cook food for the rest of your life. You only keep her in the kitchen in a small little area where she cooks food, and that's all she does. What do you think that's going to happen to the food that you consume?
The quality of it will just diminish.
Yeah.
And in fact, not diminish, but it will have a negative effect.
Yeah, so that's exactly what we're doing with cows. So that's why the Hindus consider cows your second mothers almost, because they've brought you up. If people that are fortunate to be breastfed from their own mothers, that's great. But then at the same time, your mother will not be able to breastfeed you all the time. You will also consume the milk from a cow, and that again, that mother or that cow becomes your second mother. And that's something that's lost in today's tradition, where we drink commercial milk, and even if it's milk that's been milked the normal traditional way and it doesn't hurt the cow, we don't meet the cow. We never ever meet the person or the animal the food comes from. That's the other problem. That's why we're so disconnected from nature. It comes back to the cutlery analogy, where we are separating ourselves from the food itself. We're also separating ourselves from the sort of the part of nature where the food comes from.
Yeah, that's vital. It's very important to being a part of it, because you're in the chain then. I think that really highlights the separation we have in society, is because we're in the entertainment age and the information age. It's like whatever we want instantly. We'll get it however means. Like it's real and a level of disengagement and unconsciousness that all we want is the product. We don't care how, and we don't even care what it does, essentially. Like what you're saying about milk, if that person's in chains, it's a really good analogy. If that mother or that cow is in chains, we lose the quality of what is actually in the product, especially through milk, again, what they pump into the animal, into the cows, and how it comes to us. It's like, all we want is to be full. We don't care about the nutrients, we don't care. I mean, look at the massive thing. I think it's on the way out now, and maybe it has been for a while, but the whole thing about protein. Yeah, get your protein in. Make sure you take your protein powders. Waste of milk is what it was. It was the byproduct of milk wastage. Get it into a powder form. Cost companies 5p. They'll sell it to you for 45 quid a tub. And it's like, we don't care. All we want is that it says protein. We want the thing. We don't care about the quality of nutrients,
yes,
or if it's alive or not, like enzymes. And it's the arrogance and the ignorance of the generations that we're in. Because you will benefit so much more if you're eating organic, and less because it's nutrient dense. You'll benefit so much more if it's coming from a high quality source. But I think it takes a level of awareness, or to have this brought to your attention, and to actually experiment and see, do you feel different with these products or not? And we definitely will, but it's got to be something done for a time, because if we're on a level of denseness anyway, it takes us the time to recognize that you can feel different, and these things do have a sort of approach.
And just to add to that, going back to your fast, the only way you will fully reset the body and feel what's going on is to fast. Because if you keep doing the same thing over and over and over again, it becomes second nature for you. But then as soon as you have that break in between, like you said, 48 hours to 72 hours fast, then you can consume that product again and then start to understand, is it benefiting me? What's the response in my body?
Yeah. Going into the food types that you were saying, me I have my little concoction every morning, which is lemon, cayenne pepper, turmeric, black pepper, because that helps absorb the turmeric, and ginger. And looking at them, the kind of quality foods they're in, I'm taking the cayenne pepper out now, even though it's useful, it's very good for purifying the body and cleansing the organs and removing toxins because it's fiery. My general type is more pitta, which I'm more fiery based. I'm more energy, get things done. Which actually, I don't need more foods of that. I need to slow that down, and I've noticed that and reflected on that recently. And it's like tying more into the food is like, let's get that out of the way so I can be more settled and balanced. Now, what I thought was good, and it is good, but it's only good at the right time. It's like you can't take medicine all the time if you're not ill, because it won't be doing its job, and it can actually cause, it can stop your body functioning the right way. So all these foods that, what were the types again?
Sattvic, Rajasic, and Tamasic.
Rajasic and Tamasic. So when we say one food's are good or bad, like the Tamasic, which was more, did you say like the meat and heavily based? Now for us, it's not useful, but for somebody else, it will be. And it's like we're the balance of these factors. The more you know yourself and you see what foods are responding where, again, the Rajasic qualities of the fire, that would be good for somebody who's got inertia and they're slow and they can't go up, right, get some of this down, yeah? Because that fire will start to cleanse out and wake you up. But I'm already naturally there anyway, so I need to slow that down because it's going too high. And this, again, the beauty of life, everyone's truth is individual, but how aware are you of yourself and where you are and what do we, because I could easily keep saying, no, it's good for me because it cleans my body out, so I'm going to keep taking it. On other levels, it's not. And it isn't, so I need to reduce that. But we have to be willing to reflect on where we're at and what we're actually doing with our life, where are our conflicts, where are our issues, what's our energy output, are we struggling with meditation, have I got too much energy, have I not got enough, and put it into the spectrum, which is why Ayurveda is phenomenal. And